and I will let me know when we can put our tray tables in the upright position, and we'll get ready to taxi out to the runway. We'll be joining in the takeoff procession here shortly.
Nice. Yes. Let me just get all the things let's make sure we're recording. All right. Where's my record button? There we go. All right. Ding, ding. All right, there we go. Well, welcome everybody. We're excited to have you all here, either in the Google Meet or via LinkedIn and online. We are excited to continue our Pathways to Fall Success webinar series, and today focusing on financial fitness with our Arizona new friend and Troy from Goodwill, and we're excited to hear some stuff he has for us today, and I will turn it over to you, Troy.
Why, thank you so much, Callie. So I wish everybody a very, very happy Friday Eve. It is Friday Eve, and yes, we did make it to the end of the week. So what I'd like to do today is I want to make sure that I'm making very good use of your time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a quick intro of myself. My name is Troy. I work with Goodwill of Central and Northern Arizona and Monocacy Valley. Yes, we did merge with Maryland because it's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Arizona. Interesting concept. We can save that for another sidebar. Our team, we go out in the community to try to have as much impact with individuals as possible. Training, upskilling, mindset training, getting people confident to be able to speak about themselves. We look to try to end generational poverty, and we work with all types of individuals all across the community, from high school students all the way up to adults. And let's just put it this way. These are trainings that I wish that I had received much earlier on in life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by showing you one of the things that my team and I base a lot of our trainings on. This is where all these trainings live. So I'll also start by saying that if for some reason I wasn't in front of you today and you did get access to my career advisor, which I'll show you here right now. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to show you this resource right now. It's called My Career Advisor. And I'm hoping that you can see my screen now. So this is actually the home page where you can go in and log in, create an account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing that. I just wanted you to see what that looks like. And I'm going to actually reshare your own customized Persevere link. So let's see if that shows up. So for everyone in the classroom, you can either use your smartphone if you have one and scan the QR code. And if for some reason you are sitting in front of a Chromebook or some other type of a laptop device, you can start typing at the Get MCA. You don't have to type in the HTTPS ://. You just start by typing the getmca.app/MCA Persevere Workshop. And I'm just going to give everybody probably 2 to 3 minutes. And the reason that I'd like you to do this is so that you, after we're done today, you have access to any of the additional financial wellness materials that are actually on the website. Again, this is 100% no cost. This is funded by people shopping and donating at Goodwill. And it's what allows my team to go out in the community and make the impact that we make. So I'll just give everybody a couple of minutes here. Probably not a couple of minutes. I'll probably end up giving you about a minute and a half. And I'll leave this up just then. And while you're typing, or while you're getting to the sign in, the create account page, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown on what to do when you get there. So it's first name, last name, an email address twice, password twice. They got to match. You know how that works, right? If you've ever been on social media, and then a zip code. And then after that, I'll leave you alone. And maybe if we get to spend some time together again, I'll talk to you a little bit more about what the site can do. All right, I'm going to give everybody just a quick 30 seconds. Isn't this amazing? We got really good at this, doing this virtually during that thing that happened in 2020 that we shall not mention the name of. So we learned how to do all these things online very efficiently. So I'm going to give everybody the last 15-second warning here. We're going to do a silent countdown. And I'm about ready to stop sharing, and I will reshare the presentation that we're going to be using as a guideline today. I think what you're going to learn about me as a presenter is the slides are a guideline, and I try to have a discussion and talk to individuals about finance and see what they know. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm actually going to reshare our PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to go over here to share that screen. So somebody give me a yes indeed or a thumbs up. Can you see the PowerPoint presentation that I'm now sharing? Okay, Callie, thank you so much. And I'm going to go slideshow, and I'm going to go from, I'm going to say we're going to go from the beginning. You can still see the screen, yes? Okay. I'm imagining that if you couldn't see the screen, you'd be stopping me by now. So we're gonna skip the introductions part. Again, I'd like to get to know everybody here, but I feel like if there is probably 20 or more people on the call, that'll take up some valuable time. Hopefully we'll all get to meet one another at some point. So we're talking about financial wellness. So what I'd really like to emphasize is so much of what we do now is credit. In fact, I'll give you an example. Someone was able to get my debit card number recently, and I'm now operating out of cash again. It's very foreign to be operating out of cash. And I will say that most individuals now do something through their smartphone with banking. A lot of people don't even carry cards anymore. They basically have their cards uploaded to their phone. So it's a very different world. So because credit cards, debit cards, banks play such a large role in how people handle their finances, I really thought this would be a really good starting point for the financial wellness pathway. So I'm going to give you a disclaimer. I'm not a financial planner, number one. Number two, I'm not a financial planner. Number three, I'm not a financial planner. So we are basically covering ideas and concepts here. We're not giving you advice as to what to do. We're here to talk about scenarios and situations and things that we feel everybody should know about finance and general financial health. And again, this is all in part to end the rampant spread of generational poverty. Workshop rules. I think we can do some interaction. Based on the fact that I can't see anybody now, I can just see my PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully we'll be able to interact. And if you have questions, certainly feel free to unmute and chime in. If there's something that you'd like to share, something you would want to ask about. I think we're all adults here, so these workshop rules should be pretty self-explanatory. So the objective, we're going to describe how credit functions. We're going to explore credit usage principles, including the 5 C's of credit. We're also going to determine how leveraging credit monitoring agencies, they get to decide what you get to do based on who you are, where you live, how often you pay your bills, if you pay your bills on time, things of that nature. So workshop topics, we're going to talk about what is credit, the types of credit. We're going to talk about, again, the reporting agencies. We're going to figure out how to leverage credit wisely, and then we're going to talk about credit card tips. I'm going to assume that most of us have used a credit card. Anybody on the call have anything that they'd like to share about credit or credit cards or any of their experiences? If it's just a short snippet you could share with us. I'll start by giving you an example. Oh, we have someone chiming in. So my example is I've got more credit cards than I want to have right now. It makes me nervous. I'm not a fan. Anybody else have any feedback?
My feedback is I wish there was more education in, say, like high school, about the use of credit cards and credit. Because I mean, I'm a little older, probably maybe than some on here, but not having that education, I got into some trouble when I got to college, and all of a sudden everyone's like, "Here, you want a credit card? Here, you want a credit card?" Um, and so having more, workshops like this and more things, especially in high schools, kids are going off to college, um, are helpful. Maybe the kids these days do have that, but that's mine.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, Kelly, because that's one of the things. So one of the things my team does is we go to high schools all across Maricopa County, and that's the one thing I tell them all. They will see you coming from a mile away when you go to that college and career fair. They'll say, "Oh, here's this new individual. Maybe they've decided to move into a dorm. Um, hey, you know how you went through that $300 your parents wired you over the weekend buying pizza? High schools all across trying to have a study group with your friends, right? You don't need to call your parents and tell them that you've already gone through all that money. Here's a student credit card, a student visa. We're going to give you a T-shirt. We'll get you signed up today. And the next phone call that you're going to have to make to your parents is probably going to be, now I'm $1,500 in debt, and I don't know how I'm going to make my credit card payment." Pretty awkward conversation. So credit, it decides, number one, where you live, right? What you get to drive, if you get to drive. Credit is basically like a reflection of you as a person, according to what everybody thinks it is on paper. Um, can you drop out and live under the radar and use money orders and cash for the rest of your life? I suppose you probably could, but they're making that harder day by day by day. It's starting to get harder every year to operate out of cash. Um, Again, I told you I did really lose my debit card because somebody got the number, and I'm waiting for my new debit card in the mail. And right now, it's like people are starting to look at me funny when I pull out cash. Furthermore, take $100 bill and do a Circle K after 8 p.m. and see if you can even use it. Just saying, they're making it a lot harder to use cash. So I think one of the other things is, how do you establish credit, and what do people do to determine what your credit score is? So again, just to review before we move on to the next slide, who you are, what you get to buy, where, sometimes where you can get to work. Let's throw that in there too. Some companies now, they'll actually look at your credit score to determine whether or not you get a job, because they consider that to be a reflection of your character. So it's getting to be a completely different world than what we're used to. So let's see if I can move. Okay. Let me see if I can control the. I'm not going to play the videos. So, because why would I play you videos when I'm going to be your video? I feel like that's probably the correct thing to do here. Do you need credit? As much as control, and as much as some of the things that revolve around credit that I disagree with, there's really not any way around it anymore. Unfortunately, you need to have good credit to live a comfortable and financially secure life. Again, what we talk about being financially well, financial wellness. Credit companies, they'll use your credit history to determine your ability to repay loans and debts. It's as simple as loaning somebody $20. If they don't pay you back, you're probably not going to lend them money again. And that just goes, with the whole personal debt thing. Anybody on the call ever tried to buy a car? I have. Anybody ever tried to apply for a job? Yeah. Purchased a home? Man, I had to do some magic tricks with my credit to purchase a home. I had to go to a debt consolidation place. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm an expert. I'm not lecturing anybody on this call. I've had one of my own personal businesses fail. I've had a car repoed. I've almost lost everything. That was in the housing crash of 2008. It was rough times. So again, I think that one of the biggest things that I love about my job now is I get to pay it forward and I get to tell people that not only am I talking to you for your own well-being, I'm talking to you through experience. So, look, it can happen to anybody. And then now living expenses. I would say since, look, ultimately, I'm no financial expert. I don't know what all the causes are, but I know that there's a few things that probably cause the inflation to be where it is now. But overall, I think my expenses have gone up 30% probably during the last 3 years, and it's just crazy. So living expenses, man, and that's why so many more people now have credit cards and they're using credit cards for things that they would have normally used their debit card for coming out of pocket. So it's as they say, may you live in interesting times. Boy, oh boy, we sure do. So establishing credit within a credit card. I actually hadn't been using credit cards for a long time, and one day I was in Kohl's, and that's where I always went to buy my wife her little gifts because they had a nice jewelry counter there. At least they had the bigger jewelry counters before they put in the what's the makeup company that actually took over the jewelry counters in Kohl's? Does anybody know? Kohl's department store?
Oh man, I can't remember. Clinique? That's what
I, I don't know, but they replaced the jewelry section with the bigger makeup section. And so, long story short, I got my Kohl's card and I started using credit again. And this was probably about 4 years ago. And so I figured, well, if I only use it for Kohl's, I can kind of keep it under control. And I have, right? Lots of times when you have no credit or you've had maybe some credit troubles, you can get a secured credit card in which they start you off with a very low balance, like $250. And they'll basically cut you off until you pay off your balance, right? Or until you make your minimum payment. The danger of
period.
A credit card, and many of you that have had them know, if you're not very self-disciplined and you tend to be very impulsive and you're not budgeting and you're not planning,
All of that. Period.
you spend money you don't have to buy things you don't need to impress people that don't care about you anyway. Did I say that out loud? It's the truth. And I will say that's not everybody's case. I will also tell you that now, again, families are using credit out of necessity because they are all tapped out of options. And the thing that you have to remember about a credit card is there's interest attached to the money that you're basically borrowing. Credit card is basically like a little mini loan. Doesn't even have to be a little mini loan. It could be a bigger loan. All right, show of hands, maybe not a show of hands. Who thinks on the call right now that's in the room with us, if you just suddenly received a credit card with a $10,000 limit, how confident are you in your own ability to remain logical and rational about what you're going to do with that credit card?
Me personally would be horrible, and it is my husband that keeps me in line. I like to think I'm financially responsible, but you know what? If I get into a sad state, sometimes I want to do therapy shopping. So that would be my struggle. I rely on my husband for that. I'd be curious if anyone in any of the classrooms thinks that upon release they would be able to easily manage a $10,000 limit if they were given one.
It can be hard. And here's kind of what my wife told me one time, because see, Callie, my wife and I, we're kind of reversed. She's the one that's more sane, logical, and rational when it comes to ridiculousness. And like you said, therapy buying, right? I'll give you a little bit of advice. Not even advice. I'll just say something that helped change my outlook a lot. You can't fill a hole in your soul with stuff, because you're never going to find a U-Haul in one day. We're all going to leave the planet. There will never be a U-Haul behind your hearse in your funeral procession. It's just stuff. So the way I try to keep myself in check is I'll ask myself questions like, how many do you already have? And I'm referring to drum sets when I'm not doing this. I'm a drummer and I'm a musician. And I get excited about music gear, and I always, oh, I got to have this snare drum. Oh, I got to have these drums. And it's like, that's sort of my thing. And I don't spend money really on anything else other than the bare necessities. But it's getting to the point now where my wife walks into our living room and she looks around and goes, the drums are as high as the ceiling now. It's funny how you don't do this for a living, but you have more drum sets than most people that are professional. And I think, right. So, and again, they're not real expensive drum sets, but again, you got to think about the things that you really need versus the things that you really want. The idea behind a credit card is supposed to be rainy day funds, right? Like when you're really in a pinch and you don't have any other option. Let's just say that the phone rings and unfortunately you get some bad news, maybe about a family member, you have to travel unexpectedly. You know, you blow out two tires on the car because you went through a construction site and ran over, a tool. I mean, that's always what happens. Life will tend to happen. So because we have the slide up, cosigners, I think most of us have heard that term before. A cosigner means that you don't have good enough credit rating or you don't have any credit rating. That means that they're going to ask somebody else to step in, kind of be a stunt double for you. So if for some reason you don't pay, they can then go after the other person with collections, right? So let's just say that you get a card and you're doing well and you spend a little bit only when you have to and you pay the balance off right away. Then if for some reason you feel like you can handle a credit limit increase and you're being responsible with it, you can reach out and get an increase. Establishing credit without a card. How do you do that? Interesting. I know a lot of us, myself included, I was operating with no credit cards. I was basically using my debit card. So what that meant is if I didn't have the cash for it, I didn't buy it. Truthfully, I have to say I preferred it like that. Especially now when you get into a situation where your financial situation levels out a little bit and you finally get to breathe a little bit. Then you figure, well, I got one card. Then when you get one credit card, what happens? You're going to start to get a bunch of other offers in the mail. You're going to get credit card offers all over the place. And I will tell you, be very careful of that. I don't want everybody on the call to become a conspiracy theorist, but I will tell you the people that have all the money and control in this world, they're not necessarily interested in your best interest. Yes, I said it out loud. It's the truth. They make a lot of money off you when you're in debt with interest. Who knows? Who can give me a guess? Ballpark the average interest on a credit card. And I'm looking for the number, the percentage. What percent interest do you think that credit card companies are charging right now? Anybody have any feedback for me on this? Does anybody have a guess? Maybe someone we haven't heard from yet? You could just unmute and yell it out.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, 28 to 30. Oof.
28 to 30%. So, right. So you went on to Amazon. You've done a couple of transactions on Amazon and they drop it off right at your location, right? Because that's what they do. They make it ultra convenient for you to lose money because you're spending money, right? Then all of a sudden you think, well, it looks like they're sending me this offer here. I can get myself a little Amazon credit card and that way I don't have to come out of pocket for everything that I buy. Then what ends up happening is like, oh, well, I got a pair of shoes that I really needed. Now I see that, man, there's a belt that I really like. Or, I need a part for my mountain bike. Or I really needed some sundries, so some supplies. My favorite deodorant that I got at Walgreens, I can get it for, $2 cheaper if I buy it on Amazon. And then all of a sudden you get into this mode of, oh yeah, it's out of sight, out of mind. I don't have to come out of pocket. Next thing you know, you've got a $500 bill with Amazon. And if you're only making your minimum payment, 500 times 30% is what? That's what? You basically just added $150 on your balance. So the stuff that you thought cost you $500, really, when you add that interest in, that's $650. It's the way it works, man. You think about buying a car, buy a $20,000 car, and it's what, 7% interest on the loan. And again, if you've been building your credit, or you're coming out of a situation where you're trying to get, trying to get a fresh start, or maybe you're rebuilding your credit, you might find that you're going to pay 15, 20%. So let's just say that you're paying 15% on a $30,000 car. That car actually costs $45,000 by the time you pay it off. And, let's just say that maybe you have a couple of glitches where you have a couple of rough weeks or whatever, and maybe you can't make a payment 1 week or 1 month rather. It can go sideways pretty quick, and you can go from being okay to pretty well upside down in a matter of days. It can happen really fast. Your credit score can go from 720 all the way down to 537 in a matter of 30 days. It just depends on how much credit you're using and how quickly you're paying your bills, and are you keeping up with all your credit deadlines. Student loans. If any of you are deciding to go to school as part of the new chapter of your life, be very careful. Student loans, it's the same thing as buying a car. The only difference between an education and a car is you can't smell the leather, you can't kick the tires, and you can't take it for a test drive. I'm all for higher education. I think that if you have a focused plan and you know who you are, where you want to go, you have an idea how you're going to get there, and you know why you want to go there in the first place, going to school might be a good thing. Could be a trade school, could be a community college, could be a state university. Be very careful with money that you're borrowing from anyone who's lending you money to go to school, because it is a loan, and yes, you will have to pay it back. And another thing a lot of people don't talk about with student loans is you cannot erase that through credit counseling. You cannot erase that through a bankruptcy. Student loans will follow you into your grave. And I mean that seriously. I'm saying that out loud. Student loans don't ever go away, so be very careful. Utility bills. It's another way you can build credit, right? Without using a card. Have you ever gone somewhere to do something? I can think of one place. Like let's just say that I clean my yard up and I need to go to the city dump, and I have a load of stuff that I can't just throw out on the front of my driveway. I actually have to bring a water bill or an electric bill, I think, to get into the dump. Utility bills are useful for a lot of things, but again, how are you going to establish credit or say that you have any type of credit at all if you don't have any credit cards, but you've actually been living in an apartment for, let's say, 12 months? You've been paying your APS bill or your SRP bill. You may have some other bills. Maybe you've been on time with your rent. You might have a cell phone bill. These are all ways that you can establish credit, that you have the character to actually follow through with. Yep, I'm going to borrow something from you, and I'm actually going to pay you back for it. Make sense? All right, let's go on to the next slide. Knowledge check. So what is credit? Who wants to chime in? Who can give me a nice Reader's Digest condensed version of what is credit? Anyone? Feel free to unmute and interrupt. I'll give it just another 5 seconds. Go ahead.
I would say credit's an obnoxious thing that we kind of have to deal with sometimes, but it helps for approving things, getting money, loans, all sorts of things that you need to show that you are, well, they would say of good character. I don't think it always necessarily means that, but credit is the way to show your ability to pay for things, be approved for things, and hopefully have a rainy day fund.
I would agree. Thank you very much, Kelly. Anybody else before we move on to the next knowledge check? Okay. If for some reason you feel like you want to interrupt, please feel free. I think, Kelly, you just did this. 3 reasons you may need good credit, right? You got to have a car. You got to have a place to live. Well, look, maybe you don't have to have a car, but if anybody's planning on being in the Phoenix metro area and you don't live near the light rail, or you don't live near a bus stop, I mean, Phoenix is a pretty spread out area. It's like a miniature version of Los Angeles with no beach. Having a motor vehicle is I would say more necessary in our city than many others. And you're going to have eventually you're going to need a roof over your head. And what I'm hoping is that the majority of the people now that I don't know what's going to have to happen with our current financial situation in this country, but what I'm hoping is that you all have eventually the privilege to buy a home, to generate wealth, and to have a legacy to pass on. And to do that, you're going to have a credit score that will allow you to get involved in like a first-time home buyer program. But again, we live in interesting times, as they say. Okay, name one way to establish credit without a credit card. We already talked about it. Utility bill is probably the easiest one. The different types of credit, 5 C's of credit. Let's see what we got here. So we got charge cards, basically like your Kohl's card. What else? Amazon card that's specifically for Amazon. You might have a gas card, that you just put gas in a car with. Credit cards are good everywhere. A non-installment credit card and an installment credit card. These are again things that are I think what they're talking about with a non-installment credit card is I know that they have these different types of, how can I say this? Has anybody ever seen someone that has a thermostat in their house, like where they actually have to slide a card into it, and you only get like X amount of power, like you have to add $20 to your AC so you can turn it down a degree? I've seen this, and it's really part of like voc rehab programs, and when people are trying to get back on their feet. So they actually have these non-installment cards where you actually have to load in your cash, and if you need, let's just say for some reason you run out of credit, your water will go off, and you have to literally you have to put the card in, and you got to punch in your little code or whatever, and if you have credits on your card, it'll turn your water or your electricity back on. And then of course installment credit is basically when you're paying a car payment, when you're paying a home loan, when you're paying rent for an apartment. So all different types of credit, and pretty interesting ways they can kind of. I'm trying not to make everybody feel like there's a conspiracy against you, like the world's out to get you. The truth is, the world is out to get you. I'm trying to make sure that you have as much defense against that as you possibly can have. The 5 C's of credit: character, conditions, capacity, collateral, and capital. Who knows what capital is? What's capital? Anybody want to chime in?
Like your house.
Callie. Oh yeah, capital is like your house. So let's just see. Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's just say that, Cal, you decide you're going to start your own business, and again, you're going to need startup costs. So that's basically what we call capital. The other way that they use capital, have you ever heard people called human capital, like human resources? They call their workforce human capital. It's kind of interesting. It kind of makes me feel like a cow, like I'm part of a herd of cattle. It kind of makes me feel like I'm not a person. I'm just sort of like a little wheel, like a little cog that goes in the bigger machine. The conditions of credit are, how long do you need to borrow the money for? How much interest are you going to be charged? Right? Are you going to have to take a 7-year loan to pay this truck off? Or are you going to be able to do it in 6 years? Quite frankly, I have to say this out loud. What some people are making now as their car payment 10 years ago would have gotten you you could have rented a house, like a 3-bedroom house or a pretty big apartment for the same amount of money. It's not good out there right now. Again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it's expensive. So just be ready for it. Character, again, that's one of the things that they try to tie to your credit. But again, look, if you lend your friend $50 and they say that if you lend it to them today and they say they're going to have that $50 back to you by next Thursday, and Thursday comes and goes, and then you got to call them up on Saturday and say, hey man, I haven't seen you around. You got that 50? Actually, my grandmother got sick and I got all these excuses and it's like, oh boy. So then you're going to be trying to chase somebody down for $50 that you thought was your friend. And now all of a sudden they have bad character and maybe they don't ever pay you back. And maybe you forget about that for a year. You run into them somewhere else and like, oh, hey, how you been? Oh, great. Hey, by the way, could I borrow $30? Like, man, you still owe me 50. So then their character's affected. And that just goes to show that companies now are using these things to try to figure out who you are. Even if that doesn't reflect your true character as a person, if you're not paying your bills back and you're not paying your debts, it can have a dramatic impact on your life. Capacity. How much credit can you actually handle? Collateral. That means if I'm getting ready to give you a small business loan and I say, okay, it looks like your business is doing really well. I like your business model. I like your business plan. It's kind of like one of these shows like Shark Tank, right? Where they get your business proposal and your idea and they figure out if you could actually make money. They'll say, so what do you got for collateral? It's almost like you say, all right, I'm going to lend my friend $50. What do you got for collateral? Oh, I got this paperweight over here. Or I got this set of headphones. These are really expensive. I can give you these headphones until I give you the $50 back, right? That's collateral. So what can you put up? What can you put up that, for some reason you don't pay me, I get to keep it, and then I can probably sell the collateral and recoup my money that I lent out. So again, all these things are going to light up, all the fancy things that the PowerPoint slide does. So what are the 4 types of credit? Was anybody taking notes? I'll walk you through it. Charge cards, right? Which are specific to stores. Credit cards, which are good everywhere. Installment credit, right? Which is like car loans, rent. And then what was it? The non-installment was those things that they meter if you can get water or not. They meter if you can get electricity or not. It's kind of like pay as you go. It's almost like a pay as you go cell phone, but that would be another example of that too, non-installment, right? Difference between a charge card and a credit card. Again, a charge card is something you use at a store. A credit card is something that's good everywhere. And then what are the 5 C's of credit? We just covered it. All right. Callie, you got a raised hand.
Yes,
go ahead.
I got a question from LinkedIn, and I think it can also relate to credit too, but also really specifically about find it so I get the right thing. When you're, especially, he was specifically talking about student loan debt and paying that down and getting out of debt, but even just how tips on completely removing debt without bankruptcy. But I think it could also apply to tips for like you don't have great credit, and the quickest way is to just be on top of it, take care of things, and to get to a better state for between debt and credit.
Okay, so credit consolidation. This is something that I can speak to through experience because I had to fix my credit up to buy a house. I was lucky, and I was not very financially sound. I was a late bloomer in life, and again, I don't mind sharing some of my shortcomings if it's going to help people of future generations or helps anybody in a situation where they need to get on their feet fast. Credit consolidation is basically if you have outstanding debt, what you do is you send certified letters to these agencies stating that you want to see the original documents that said you actually hold those debts. The ultimate purpose of that was to, okay, so how can I say this? So credit consolidation and credit recovery works like this. If I send you a certified letter, let's just say that I had a Target card and I ran out $500 in debt and I never paid it off. Target's going to try to call me for a little while. And if I dodge their phone calls and I still don't pay my Target card and I just start to use cash and I still go shop at Target, but they're not going to throw me out of their store for not paying the card if they don't know who I am, right? If I'm shopping with cash. Well, what they end up doing is they send that to a collection agency. A collection agency might offer to buy these delinquent accounts off of the main debtors, right? So now it's Target's original debt, but ABC Collections bought my debt from Target. So what ends up happening is ABC Collections might try to call me for another year. If I never respond to their calls or their emails, they might get sick of it, and then they might sell my account to like a third party debt collection agency, right? So really what you do with credit consolidation, based on the experience that I had, is you get to send a certified letter to the current collections agency. And if they don't have an original letter of debt in your file, if they can't prove that you actually were in debt, like if they don't have that original document from Target, they have to take it off your credit report and you don't have to pay it. Weird, right? It almost sounds slightly illegal. But again, there are loopholes in the system. And based on my experience when I was buying my house back in 2010, I think I had 8 outstanding, and I'm not proud of this saying it out loud, but look, I want to let you know that I'm a human being too, and I'm not perfect, and I've had financial troubles. I think out of the 8 accounts that I was trying to have cleared up, I got 5 of them removed. Out of the eight registered certified letters that I sent, I actually had to pay the debts on 3 of them, but it was dramatically discounted. They actually granted me an amnesty. So if I owed this one, I think one credit card, I think I owed about $1,200. They settled with me for about $700, right? So I had to get my credit score up to 636, which was qualified me for the first time homebuyer program. So that's what I can tell you. But what I'll tell you too is so many people now have gotten into this business of helping people with their credit and wiping out debt. I highly recommend that if you decide to go through any of these programs, to definitely vet, which means to do a complete deep dive, investigate who these organizations are, figure out what they're made of, figure out if they have any customers that you talk to, make sure it's totally legit, because I've heard of some of these places being slightly crooked. The gentleman that I worked with in the past, Al, he was up in years when I worked with him, and I'm sure right now he's probably retired. If not, he may be expired. And I hate to be that blunt, but I'm just being right up front with you. Now, student loans, specifically, I can tell you I've had plenty of experience with student loans. So here's the thing. It is a debt. You do go through what they call entrance counseling. They will go through everything with you. They'll lend you money to go to school, and it's usually through federal Stafford loans through the federal program. There's also private loans for going to school. You can get into all sorts of trouble with student debt. So again, be very, very careful, because you do have to pay all those debts back. Scholarships, that's great. A lot of times that's 100% free. Grants, what they call Pell Grants, if you're going to school, be very careful. They'll let you have the Pell Grant money so long as you finish the program. Let's just say that you decide you're going to go to school to be a respiratory therapist, or you're going to go to school, maybe you're going to go to a trade school and you're going to learn how to weld, or maybe you're going to go to learn how to do air conditioning, or you're going to go into some sort of a trade, maybe electrical, maybe plumbing. If they're giving you a grant to go to that training, if you for some reason decide that you no longer want to be a plumber, or you no longer want to go into electrical, if you drop out of the program, you're also responsible for the Pell Grant money. So it stacks up pretty quick. So what I will tell you is when you're looking at any type of training or upskilling, definitely look at the community colleges. If you're looking at an actual college, they do lots of non-degree certification programs now. That's also $90 a credit hour, which means if you have most of your classes are 3 credits, you're looking at $270 a class versus many of the state universities, which are sometimes $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a class. And yes, I said that out loud. It's crazy. It gets to be that expensive when you're looking at college. Some of the trade schools, I think, are very much less expensive than they once were. They're really having they're really putting a lot of focus on trades now. In fact, and I can't think of the name of it for the life of me. I was at Cardinal Stadium yesterday, and I was right next to this. Basically this institution that trains people how to be diesel mechanics. It's zero tuition. They basically get you in and train you how to be a diesel mechanic, and they take you under their wing, and it doesn't cost anything. So, I mean, there's all sorts of different ways that you can try to figure out how to get training, upskilling for whatever it is that you want to do. My advice there is talk to as many people as you possibly can. Get second opinions, get third opinions. Don't just go into one school and do an interview with one of their admissions counselors and say, yep, sounds great, and then sign up. And then you're literally paying $30,000 for training you could have got for free at Job Corps. Just saying out loud. And I speak from experience here. I just turned 52 in August and I still have student loans. I'll say it again. I just turned 52 in August and I'm still paying on my student loans. Yes. Why? Because I did an 8-year bachelor's program and I waited 13 years to go back and get a master's degree. Um, and I hadn't been very responsible. There were many other things that came up in life. It's like, am I going to pay the mortgage or pay my student loans? Am I going to pay the water bill and electric bill, or am I going to pay my student loans? Student loans are very easy to push back onto the back burner, but the thing is they keep accruing interest, which means whatever you owe grows. It keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Godzilla keeps getting taller and taller and taller and taller. And then one day Godzilla catches up with you and you like look up at Godzilla and he's about ready to breathe fire and you're like, whoa, how do I fix this? Did I answer your question about number one, credit consolidation and credit recovery and the student loan question?
So that person's on LinkedIn. One clarifying thing that it asked too is tips for paying off, what to prioritize. Say, like, you have some stuff, doing some debt consolidation, but maybe solve a few things. And if there's tips for how to prioritize what to take care of first, or if there's things that would most quickly repair credit and help pay things down.
You know, did anybody, was someone else starting to say something there for a second? It almost sounded like someone else was chiming in. Prioritize, I wish there was a magic recipe for that or some sort of an equation. I think it depends on the person. It depends on what you prioritize as an individual. There will be times in the future, I can tell you, and I still do it to this day. I'm always juggling. And again, like I said, that's why I give you the disclaimer at the beginning of this training. I too am a human being, and money doesn't grow on trees. And like I said, the mortgage or the rent, yeah, you got to have a roof over your head, you got to have running water, and you have to have electricity. And I think what else? If you have to drive to get to work, you have to go to work. Then you got your car payment, and then you got your insurance for your car, right? And then if you're renting an apartment and you have stuff in there that you'd rather not have stolen and not be compensated for, you got renter's insurance. I mean, it just goes on, and then you're going to have a phone. I mean, everybody has to communicate, right? So, Callie?
Yeah, I was going to say too, I mean, regarding the student loans too, I am going to be 43 and still paying off student loans myself for master's. My husband was smarter after his bachelor's. He realized that there are some schools that will actually pay you to get a PhD and do some graduate stuff in the sciences. And so he put more thought into it than I did. I just paid for all of mine. But if you are looking at student loans and stuff too, I do know, because I was there with you, especially when my husband was in grad school and I worked for a nonprofit and we were broke, having that income-based repayment to adjust. And there are some opportunities now, like if you do work for, say, a nonprofit or you are a teacher, you make so many payments, and there's programs for that. Obviously, it takes a while. It's not like it's an overnight thing. You have to keep making the payments and keep doing the things with that. But there are a few options for some of the student loan things, especially if you're in the social sector.
Kelly, thank you so much for stepping in and helping me take some of the heat. Look, everybody has a story. We're all individuals. We all got where we are by making decisions. And sometimes you make the wrong decision. And nobody is immune to this. Doesn't matter if you're a doctor, lawyer. It doesn't matter if you work in, if you're a custodian. It doesn't matter if you do ultrasound. It doesn't matter if you're a railroad worker, or maybe you work in the oil field and you travel all around, drilling the earth for oil. Everybody is going to eventually come up to a situation where you may have some financial decisions to make. And I can tell you, I wish that I were smarter earlier. But the best thing about I think the best thing about everybody on the call here is we're all looking to make a fresh start. And what I can tell you is don't get off the call thinking that I'm bagging on higher education or I'm saying, school's too expensive. Look, I'm all about training and upskilling, but it's got to make sense in your plan. Like if you can look at your plan and say, I know where I am right now at point A, here's where I want to be at point B, and you can make it make sense, and you realize that you're investing in yourself and you know exactly what's involved with that investment, and you're not going to get any unpleasant surprises. And you've actually vetted the situation and you've talked to different individuals, and you've gotten some feedback and you've asked for some advice and you feel comfortable. I mean, again, move forward with it. But be careful out there, because there are always people that are going to be looking for individuals that are maybe not up to speed on what some of their alternative options may be, that are going to just say, yep, come on over here. Yep. Okay, go ahead. Great. And we'll just go ahead and have you sign here on the dotted line. And the next thing you know, you got your training, but you start getting those first student loan bills in the mail, and you're going, oh my gosh, how am I going to balance my life now and still make these student loan payments? It can be kind of scary. Ask me how I know. Credit agencies, real quick. I figured we have until 2, right, Kelly?
I'm sorry, what was that?
We have until 2 p.m., correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So I want to make sure that we cover credit reporting agency. Has anybody ever heard of these 3 things? Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. Each one of them may have a different score for you. TransUnion is the newest kid on the block. Look at that, established in 1968. But Experian and Equifax have been watching people's spending habits and ability to repay their bills since way back in the 1800s. Wow. So these are the three agencies that get to decide, again, what your credit score is, what you get to drive, where you get to live, where you get to go on vacation, how seriously people take you when you walk into a car dealership, how seriously people take you when you're trying to buy a house or you're trying to rent an apartment. Man, if you got bad numbers with any of these 3 agencies or all of them, your life can be not so fun. I've been there, and it takes a look. You can wreck your credit in a very short time. It's almost like losing or gaining weight. Man, it takes you a long time to lose weight, but boy, oh boy, when you're eating those pizzas, you can sure put it on quick. It's really that same metaphor. You really have to be careful. You can wreck your credit in a matter of 30 days, and it take you maybe it might even take you 30 months to build it back up. I mean, it really can be difficult. So let's move on to the next slide here. So what is it? What's the Fair Credit Reporting Act?
And we should always.
This is your right to know. It's like, this is your file. So you can actually go in and you can have a credit report pulled, and they'll actually try to charge you for it. Oh, and they'll say, oh, freecreditscore.com and all this other stuff. There's usually a string attached. So be careful when you're going to get your credit report. Sometimes your bank will even say, oh yeah, we know your credit score. Be careful of that too, because I found out that that's not necessarily accurate just recently. The 3 agencies that we just talked about, they may have a different number. So you got to know what's in your file. You can ask for your credit score. You got to know if it's being used against you. And a lot of times people will try to use it against you to prevent you from getting credit or getting additional monies that you may need. And then you have to give consent for your employer to access your file. Usually when you apply for a job, if a company is going to be checking your credit, they'll do what they call a soft credit pull. And yes, this comes up more often than you think. And it's just a general character check on, is this individual that I'm about ready to invest in working for my organization? Do they pay their bills on time? I want to say that, your character shouldn't be tied to money, but unfortunately it just is. And I know if I were going to be hiring somebody and I knew that they had a bad credit score, I can't say that wouldn't affect my decision. I think because human beings were judgmental. And if for some reason you're so, oh, I'm not judgmental, I know you're not telling me the truth, because we're always sizing each other up. It's just one of those things where people are going to judge you, right? People are going to look at you and they're going to look at your history and your background and everything, and they're going to decide who you are. My whole goal is that I want to give you enough power to prove everybody wrong. No, you don't know who I am actually, These are situations that I've been through in the past, but this is the now me, and the future me is going to do great things. So let me show you what I know here, and let me show you how powerful I am now. I've got some information that's going to change my life. Knowledge check. The 3 reporting agencies. What do we have? Equifax, Experian, and what? TransUnion. Very good. The Fair Credit Reporting Act. That's the FCRA. Usually, I don't hear people use that acronym. They'll usually say the Fair Credit Reporting Act. True or false? You can request a credit report, but not a credit score from the I don't know. Did they cover that in that last slide? Who knows? Does anybody know? Or is this a trick question?
Trick question.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is your right to see your score in your file. They have to give you your score and they have to tell you the why behind your score. Yes? Very good. So we're now coming up on the last 6 minutes, and I think that you can see that we haven't gotten through all of the slides yet. So we're getting ready to start a new section. I am more than happy to continue on our journey. What I will say about this training is I wanted to try to fit as much as I possibly could in the time that we had. Your financial well-being is going to be comprised of, for the most part, credit. Number 1, number 2, credit. Number 3, credit. It is possible to exist without credit, and I know many of you will probably be building up your credit with maybe some utility bills, maybe with some rent. Here's what I can tell you. Stay hopeful. And again, focus on the now you and the future you. Forget all that stuff in the past. Don't let your past govern your future. And I'm going to open up the last 5 minutes of the call for questions and answers. And I wanted to make sure that everybody that is on the call had a chance to ask something or be heard if they had any questions for us.
One of our friends on LinkedIn is just asking again, you need to include. You mentioned the certified letter for the creditors, things that have gone to collections and stuff. What is the stuff you need to include with a certified letter to look at, challenging that?
So basically what you need to know exactly who the collection agency is, right? You have to know who to write the letter to, right? So you're going to have to figure out who that collection agency is and who's that actual individual that heads that department in that particular agency. You're going to address that letter to them. And what the letter says, and again, it's almost been 15 years since I've done this. The letter basically states in very short, concise terminology, dear ABC Collections, my name is Troy Maskell. Allegedly, I'm being pursued for this amount based on the original debt of this amount. What I'll need you to do is provide me with that original letter of debt. There's some sort of a certificate of debt that they buy off of the collection, off of the original debtor. And again, I don't want that to sound deceptive or like it's illegal or anything. I too was very skeptical when I went in, and the gentleman, his name, I'll never forget him. His name was Al Rocks. And he said, hey, look, I've been doing this for 25 years. It's completely legitimate. They have to be able to prove that you actually have that debt. They have to get that debt certificate from the original company that you owe. And if for some reason they can't provide a letter that shows the chain of custody, like if ABC Credit didn't get that original certificate from Target, when ABC Credit sold your account off to DEF Credit after they couldn't collect from you either, if for some reason they forgot to put that letter in the file and no one can locate that original letter, then basically you don't owe the money, and you can then request and say, well, then you have to go in and erase that off of my credit report because you can't prove that I actually owe the money. So that's what the verbiage circled around. Now, if you're ever going to attempt something like that, I highly recommend that you look into that credit consolidation. credit recovery, and you try to find a company that's been in business for a while, and you try to find someone that can show you, here's some examples of some satisfied customers. And, once I went through the process, I think I had a couple of friends and one of my cousins actually used the same agency. And again, I don't think that Al Rock's organization is still around because I think he retired or, he's no longer with us. But it was very effective and it happened pretty quick. And it did boost my credit score up high enough to where I was able to purchase a home. Um, Smartest thing I ever did was buy that house. And I'm very, very lucky that, it was right around that time between 2008 and 2010 when houses were down. Like houses that cost $500,000 today were only like 140 to 160,000 back in that time. And it just, again, it was just right place, right time for me. And, that was one of the things my mom told me to do that, I'll look up and say, thanks, Mom. That it really made a difference. So what I'm hoping is that everybody here is able to step in and eventually get an opportunity where you can do that as part of your legacy and you can have that wealth generation tool of actually buying your own home.
Disagree. I mean, I know it's harder and harder these days for the home ownership, but totally agree. Um, oh, I just lost my train of thought for a second. All right. The other question, I'm getting, and obviously it's not for today so much, but I'm wondering if you would be interested in coming back. We've gotten just questions on creating budgets and how, especially for some of our folks, coming out of incarceration, having to start over again, like you're maybe getting your driver's license, you're getting a new place, rent, trying to think through some of those things and wondering if you might be interested in coming back sometime to do something or one of your team members on budgeting and savings 101.
I'd be more than happy to. And again, there's just so much to cover, and I feel bad that we didn't get through, a lot of the training. So I will tell you all, and I know we're right at 2. I don't really have a hard stop right at 2. So is it okay if I run over for about 3 minutes, Callie?
Yes, of course.
Um, this curriculum is based on 10 classroom hours. So what I did is I took what I thought was probably the most relevant to everybody on the call, and I want to try to get through as much of it as possible. But I'll be more than glad to come back and talk about budgeting. Like I said, look, I'm not an expert, and when I'm explaining budgeting and I'm walking everybody through this, I'm kind of refreshing my own memory and um, my own need to budget more. I need to get better at this stuff too. So what I like to do is I like to encourage a classroom, like I like to foster a classroom environment where we're all learning from one another. And again, I'm sure that there are people that are probably in the audience today that might have plenty of experience that they might be able to share out, from a past life. And I like to foster that environment too, where people, they get bold enough to where they want to interject and share their experiences. And I think that's when we all learn from one another. And I think that you've probably seen now that my style is I try my best to follow the slides, but I have a lot of story experience along the way that I think people learn when they hear stories because I don't feel like it's very effective to just go through the slides and read the slides because I think that we learn from experiences and I think experiences lead to stories. And I think when you're telling your stories, that's when the true learning happens. And again, I don't want to go on and on and on here, but I feel very privileged that I've got to spend some time with the individuals on the call today. Again, focus on the now you and the future you. And like I said, I wish you all the best and hopefully we'll get to spend some more time with one another.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much, Troy. We've really enjoyed having you. And yes, this is a really big topic. It's hard to get to everything. I guess it's fun that we are talking about how we can just provide more classes, classroom experience type stuff, whether it's online or hopefully doing some in person. So if anyone out there, well, most specifically, our guys on the inside, maybe with Mr. Biggs. Let us know if you think virtual would be better for you for longer sessions or some in-person stuff or a mix. Because we'd love to try and see how we can get something on the calendar soon to do some more training for folks. Because I know that the financial piece is a big one, especially for our folks coming out of incarceration, let alone for, just trying to survive in this crazy expensive world these days. So we'd love to connect with you. And if you're listening to this on LinkedIn too, message us, let us know, what other things you'd be interested in learning. And I will leave with my one hot tip. I trying to remember what I was listening to as a podcast or a book or something, and so I can't give credit to whoever it was. Actually, it might have been a TV show, but just talk about the best, tip, especially for younger people or people who are just starting out, is to develop your saving muscle early. Even if it's just $5 a month to put it in your savings, and it doesn't seem like much, to get in the habit of saving money so that there's always a little something there. That has stuck with me real recently because that's again been an issue for me in the past, that it's just easy to like, well, I have it, I should spend it. But develop that savings muscle early, even if it's a small amount. And then when you get a little more money, you up it and add a little bit more to the savings. But that is the one thing that's been sticking with me recently. But I love the credit stuff. My credit's now on the up and up. It just takes time. I've had the same issues kind of, I think, as you, Troy. So it's great to know that there's other people out there who have done the hard work and come out the other side. And hopefully everyone else can do the same. So thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Have a good one now. Make good decisions.